Hey guys, welcome back. It's Vidya, and we're doing another Godot 4 C# tutorial. This is tutorial number 3, the Scene Manager. So before we dive into creating an actual functional main menu for a game, we need a little more groundwork. We need a Scene Manager. This is going to be the requirements for the Scene Manager. We're going to provide one way for scripts to reference scene paths or names, and we're going to do it using enums. So it's going to make the scripts that are going to call our scene manager really easy because all the groundwork is already going to be done in Scene Manager. We're going to provide one place to update scene names and paths, and all the scene information is going to be stored in SceneManager.cs. We're going to provide a method to change scenes with the enum to reduce typos and get code hints. We'll create a method named ChangeScene and take the enum as an argument. And that'll be short scene name, and that's going to be our enum. But to make all this magic happen, we need to make a class called SceneData that will hold the following information. It's going to hold our path, the pretty name, which is what we're going to show to the game player, the end user, and whether if you're allowed to pause the game or not. Being able to say to the scene manager and just knowing overall whether if the end user is allowed to pause the game in a particular scene is something that I like to do in my games. Now, you don't necessarily need to use this feature. If you don't want to use pauseAllowed and don't want to include that, you can. And for everyone else that doesn't want to listen to me drone on throughout the entire tutorial to learn how to change a scene in C#, I got this little snippet here. It's just GetTree.ChangeSceneToFile and then put in your path. And when you do the ChangeSceneToFile, Godot does not clear out your auto-loaded scripts. So this is definitely the method that you want to use to change your scenes if you're using auto-load. So let's just go ahead and get started making our scripts. So the first script we're going to make is going to be our class SceneData. And this class is going to have a constructor and have 3 public properties or 3 public fields in it. So I'm going to right click, create new script, and we're just going to call this SceneData.cs. I'm going to hit create. And let's go ahead and open it up in Visual Studio. And I'm going to go ahead and just clear out all the code and paste in my code. So this particular class doesn't inherit or use any special libraries, so we don't need to pull anything in. In C#, when you're making a constructor, you can generate the constructor with the same name as the class. So this whole piece here is the constructor. Below I have my fields named path, pretty name, and pauseAllowed. I have them set get. You don't necessarily have to do the set get. You'll get the same functionality if you just do a semicolon at the end of them. It's still going to be exactly the same. So this is using what Microsoft recommends in their documentation to make a constructor. The constructor uses arguments that are the same as the field names that you have defined in your actual class. So when we make a new scene data, it's going to expect us to give it these arguments. And we're going to go ahead and get to that next part now. So let's hop back over to Godot, and we're going to create a new script, and we're going to actually create our scene manager. And hit create. And again, you can pull all this code from the GitHub links. I'll have them down in the description. You can just copy and paste them right in there. And I'm just going to explain how everything works. I'm going to copy everything and paste it in there. So I have a bit of explaining to do. So with enums in C#, they don't need to be part of a class. Enums, if you make them so that they are not part of a class, they're just available to everywhere at the same time. So they're very special enums. Enums are special in the way that they behave. They're always static. They're always public this way. In this scene name, I'm going to have my main scene, and right now I just have another scene called Other just for example, but we're actually going to name that our next scene. One thing to keep up with enums is to remember that, especially for Unity, and it's probably the same with Godot, is that when the enums are serialized in the exposed editor, and you don't specify the numbers here, they start with the number 0. So by default, main menu would be 0, and other would be 1. Now, the problem with that is when you're doing your game development, you're going to find, oh no, I want to make another scene like, beginning scene, and call it something like that. Now I don't have space for it. And if you call it 0, and you compile and save this, when you go into all of your scenes that have the serialized data saved in your scenes, all of your scenes will be wrong because they'll all be bumped up 1. That'd be 0, that'll be 1, and that'll be 2 if you don't put your numbers in there. So it's going to be better if I just call main 10, other 20, and beginning scene. Then I have space for it, so I can just make it a 5. And that's going to serialize it with the numbers so that you can put something ahead of something else and rearrange it to a certain extent. It gives you the flexibility of inserting up to 9 different scenes between each scene that you define when you're first starting out. So for now, I'm just going to call this one main and make it equal to 10 and a comma, and other is equal to 20. And those are going to be the two numbers, the two integers that these enumerators actually represent. Now, underneath that, we're going to just start off our class as normal, public partial class scene manager node. And we're going to go ahead and start up the singleton reference with scene manager instance. And I was going to do an array, but I actually feel like a dictionary is going to be a better fit for this particular purpose because it simplifies the code during the change scene. And when I did my old change scene, I was doing a for loop. I've eliminated that. Now I got it down to just a single lookup, and that's it. But it just requires a little bit different setup for this. And I was getting errors with Godot not liking a custom class in the dictionary because it wasn't one of the Godot's variant types. So we're actually going to use C#'s dictionary to carry out this task. And that's perfectly fine. It's going to work fine. It'll be fine. So we need to have our using system collections.generic to have access to the built-in C# dictionary class. So I'm going to go public dictionary. We're going to do 2 types. The first type is the enumerator called eSceneTypes. So I put an E there so that we know it's an enumerator, eSceneTypes. And then we're going to have our scene data as the second data type that this dictionary will store. So it's going to store everything, path, pretty name, and pauseAllowed all together in one object together. So the scene dictionary equals new dictionary, and you're just going to do the same types, parentheses, and then you're going to do some open brackets. And then to add your scenes, you can just continue to follow my template here and copy each line when you add scenes to it. So you'll add, if I wanted to add a third scene to this, like level 2 and call this 30, I would come down here and I just copy the whole line. You can leave the comma at the end of the line too. You don't have to worry about, gotta finish off with not having a comma. C# will just let you have a trailing comma. That's perfectly fine. And I can just call this level 2 and then whatever it's called, like 20 level 30 underscore level 2. And we can just call this level 2, and we can allow the pausing on that one. And there you go. Now I got all my scenes put together with a main menu, an other, which is kind of a nonsense scene, is probably main menu. And this is just main. And we'll just go ahead and call this one main menu for now. I don't have an intention to actually scene change to the main menu. I have an intention to change to main, and main menu be an instance child of main menu, so it doesn't need to be changed to. But for this example, I'll just have everything in it just to show our options. On ready, we are just setting up the remainder of the singleton pattern, and that's all it is. We're just setting instance to this game object, and that's it. It's done. The reason for this singleton pattern is that you can't make this class static and still run the method GetTree. It will not work. Godot requires that the method be an object, that it's a new object. Can't be a static. So we're going to do public void change scene. We're going to accept an eScene name called myScene, and that's what we're going to be passing around, just the enumerator, just to keep it easy. And it's going to be super easy. And I really wish that I had this system for my previous game, because this system is actually really cool in my opinion. Next part, we're going to do string path equals scene dictionary. And out of the scene dictionary, we're going to use this. We're going to use the index scene name. So we're indexing by scene name right here. This is the key, and this is the value. So we're going to grab that. We're going to get that key, and then out of the values, we're going to get the path. So we have access to everything that's in scene data. So we can get path, pretty name, and pauseAllowed. So I can just go path, I can go pretty name, and we can do pauseAllowed also. That's a string, so it needs to be a Boolean type instead. But for now, we're just grabbing the path. What we can also do is do a little bit of setup during our change scene. Also, when we change our scene, we can also have a main Boolean in GameMaster to then also say if we're allowed to pause when we change the scene. So we're going to just say, go into GameMaster, and let's go on up. And we're going to add in a Boolean right here. We're going to go public static bool pauseAllowed equals, we're going to set it up to be false. So when we get into doing our pause menu, we're going to check if we're allowed to pause, and then we're going to be paused. But if we're not allowed to pause, then we are paused, then it's going to unpause. So in our change scene, before we change our scene, we're just going to go GameMaster.pauseAllowed equals scene dictionary. We're going to go my scene name dot paused pauseAllowed. So that's going to change if we're allowed to be paused to process that information. And when we get into doing the pause menu and all that, we will most likely revisit this script and make some adjustments to it. And now that it's done with that, it's going to do GetTree, change the scene, file, my path. Now, to set this up, we're going to come over to Godot, and we're going to add it into our singletons. We're going to go Project, Project Settings, and we're going to go Auto Load, pull up our folder, Scripts, and we want our Scene Manager, so we're just going to hit Open, and we're going to add it in there. Now, if you'd like this Scene Manager to be available to GameMaster, it needs to come first. And since SceneManager doesn't really lean on GameMaster, it could come last. But the real order of operations is we're not actually going to do anything and load scenes and whatnot in GameMaster. That isn't its function. So we got our Scene Manager in there. And let's go ahead and make it so that we can change back to our main scene here, which has nothing in it. I believe that there wasn't a sprite there. So let's go ahead and create a sprite. So you're just going to grab icon.svg and drag it in there, and drag it in such a way that you can see it in the game window. So I got my icon there, and I know that this scene is 10 main, and this scene is 20 main menu. So we're going to go over to Project, Product Settings, and we're going to go to General, and then we're going to go over to Run? No, Application Run. Okay, and you're going to want to change your main scene. So if you have nothing there, you're going to click the folder, you're going to choose Scenes, and we're going to actually start from the main menu this time instead of main. And what we're going to do is make the button take us back to the menu, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to get the scenes to change. So let's come on over to 20 main menu, and we are going to expose a new field, and we're going to call that so we're just going to do an export public scene names, my scene name. And now when we click on our button 1, we're going to do our scene change. So we're going to go SceneManager.change.instance.change scene, and we're going to go and say, see how nice it is? It gives us the little list. We got main menu, and level 2. I'm going to choose main, put that in there. So I am deriving the path names. When you come over to Scene Manager, all these path names, 10, 20, and 30. So to make sure that they're 100% right, come over to main, right click. We're going to copy the path, come back, and we're just going to delete that out and put that in. So now I know that I'm 100% correct on main. So come on back to Godot, and we're gonna play it normally this time. We're not gonna force it to play the current scene. We're gonna actually just run the project as we set it up. And here comes the test. When I click this button, it should take us over to a scene with the Godot sprite that I saved on 10 main. And it does. So there's our setup. So if you come over here, you click on this. After you build it, you can also come to the drop-down menu, and you can change the scene that you want it to be with just that one single exposed enum and whatever scene you want to be. This is a very, very powerful tool to have. And that's everything that I have for the Scene Manager. The next video is going to be creating the main menu. So we're going to make the main menu with a whole bunch of features, and it's going to be much longer than this. But thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.